Welcome to a new guide on this channel, and on this occasion is the course from Studio One. This is not a review, it's a deep dive guide about this device. Now everything on this guide is in chapters, so if you look at the description or the timeline, you can jump to a section or skip the ones you don't want. So if you like this guide, like and subscribe please, and if you have the money and you want to buy me a coffee, you can. Everything is on the description. Right, so let's just begin. So a course essentially comes from the delay family. It's a very kind of a short delay. And on top of that, we can duplicate the amount of voices, how many repetitions we do, because it comes from the delay family, by 2 or 3 times. And then we modulate the voices in some fashion. And this will give you that kind of a course sound. Okay, so I'm always starting from a default, the default patch that you get when you throw the course instance or the device into whatever instrument. In this case, I'm using a Juno kind of a, synth type of emulation. And the course is disabled. So the signal, the normal signal, is a very mono signal. That's the signal that I'm using right now. So it's super mono. So as soon as you turn on the device, and for now it sounds like this, as soon as you turn it on, you're going to be getting that course, instantly. So it's not mono anymore. So on the upper part, you have some options, and like I told before, a course comes from the delay family. So you have a delay. Now it's a very short delay. Now with the course, as soon as you start going to shorter delay times, the course it's gonna sound a little bit phasey, but that's fine. Now when you start separating the voices or separating the repetitions and moving them away from the original signal, you're gonna have a bit more so of a spread in this case. So you can go to short times, or you can go to wide times, to longer times, just to get a little bit more spread. That's how it works, at least on this course. Now, on top of that, what we can do, we can duplicate the amount of voices, the amount of repetitions. So right now we have 1, or we can do 2 with this device. Going to 2, it's going to give you a kind of a more rich sound because you have more voices. Now, whenever I say rich, it doesn't mean that it's better, right? It's just, a little bit more complex. That's the good word for this. So then you have the depth and you have the LFO shape. So the LFO shape is related to the modulation that you do right here, and the depth as well is related to the modulation. So when we do this, we are duplicating the signal, the incoming signal, by some fashion. Then we are delaying it, and then we can hear it. Now, behind the scenes, there is some modulation going on. And how we do this modulation is going to be the depth. This is going to control the modulation, and the depth is going to decide how much of this modulation we get. So if we go all the way up on the depth of 100%, we are doing full of whatever it is that we are doing right here that we're going to be discussing in a minute. So if I go down on the depth, it's just not going to sound the same. It sounds pretty static, right? It doesn't give us that, cool coarse sound. And it's because we are doing no modulation on the duplicated voices. They are very static. We are just delaying them in a very short fashion and kind of a stacking on top of them, on top of each other. So when we start modulating the voices in some fashion, we start to feel that they go bigger. And of course, this will affect the stereo field. It's gonna be kind of a feel or sound wider. Now, if you go too much, it depends on what you're doing right here, you might be getting, a normal coarse sound, or, you're gonna be getting a crazy sound. So we're gonna talk about how we can get that crazy sound. So right now we are on depth of 100%. So whatever we are doing right here is going to is affecting the voices 100%. It is like a blend control, let's just say. So the LFO speed is modulating the voices in some fashion. How fast it's modulating? Well, we have an indicator right here, a light, that it's go up and down. So right here you can go faster. So this slow time is very normal, and this is very slow. It's normal for a course. As soon as you start going up, you're going to start modulating the voices faster, and you can hear, and you will need to use good headphones or good speakers. Now we can hear the voices kind of moving. It's not very subtle anymore. And as you keep going up on the speed, since you're modulating them super fast, we get that. And it sounds more like a sound effect, like a chorus, than a chorus. So it depends on what you want to do. You might want to keep the speed on the 20-ish or something like that, just to get a normal chorus. And if you want more of the sound effects, going up in the speed is gonna give you that effect. So you have other thing that is going to be the width. Now in this case, this is going to be the amplitude of the LFO of the waveform that is doing the modulation. So 50% is fine, is normal. Now if you go less, it doesn't matter you're on depth at 100%. The waveform is super small in amplitude, so you're not going to be getting any modulation. It's very mild, almost nothing. Because it's, nothing. But if you make it bigger, you will be getting more. But if you go over 50%, the amplitude is just way too much, and it will affect the chorus. Notice how we are affecting the chorus. And if I go up on the speed, you can notice the difference. Now, right here, the selection of the speed and the width and the depth is completely up to you. So now you can fine-tune all of this. Now, a lot of choruses or different devices, they don't give you an option to alter the LFO speed. You get a fixed kind of a LFO and width and depth. So you get what you get. On this one, you can fine-tune whatever it is that you're doing. And also, you get the LFO shape. So we get to decide how we modulate the voices. So if I play it again and go fast and go up on the width so we can really hear what's going on, maybe there. So the shape that it's modulating the voices up and down is a triangle. So by default on kind of a standard choruses or analog choruses or whatever chorus, the default shape that does the modulation is going to be a triangle. In this case, it's a triangle by default, but you can use other waveforms. If you go to sine wave, the modulation is going to sound a little bit different. Now this one is going to be a saw, so it's going to sound a little bit more aggressive when it goes down because it's a saw. Starts very abruptly and then ramps down. And then you have the square, which is going to be more like an on and off. And it's very aggressive. So that's the main difference. So if I go down in speed, you can really hear the difference. Now, all of this is something that you need to kind of fine-tune or just move around just to get the sound that you want. So then you have your stereo width. Now it's not standard width, it's stereo width. So by default, this is going to be kind of a super wide or just wide, maybe not super wide, just wide. Because we are duplicating the voices, modulating them, and we get a wide sound. And remember that the sound source, it's super mono. So if I turn the chorus off, it's going to be really mono. So you can handle the width right here because maybe it's just too wide and you need a narrow sound. So by going down on the stereo width, it's going to narrow it in some fashion. Still, it's still very kind of a wide. So you can use this, it's not a super, wide, but it's kind of a more in the center. And right at about mono. All the way down is just mono. And then you have this button, which is going to be the spread. And if I turn this off and turn it on, it's just a little bit weird. So it's modifying how this control works. So if it's like that, it's going to be super wide. But this one is kind of making this a little bit narrow. So let's see that if I go down on this one, notice that it goes mono. So we have kind of different levels. So this one, it seems like it's on, but it's more like off. So it's a little bit weird, and on the manual is not very clear about this button. But we can clearly see what's going on right here on the vector scope. All right. Also, it depends on what you want to do. You might want to keep it there if you want it wide, or just maybe make it narrow by doing something like that, and it's just going to be a little bit more narrow. So I'm gonna go to a default, default patch, and I'm gonna do the same. So you get a low cut and a high cut. By default, this is going to be a kind of a very bright sound. If I play something again, notice it's very bright, and if I go back to default, it's just dark. It's very dark, and it's because it's cutting a lot of frequencies. 5K, so it's cutting a lot. But if you want a bright sound, more brighter sound, you can go right there and open it and just get pretty much a lot of lows and a lot of highs. Do no cut. But if you have a very prominent sound in the lows, you can just cut the lows. Or if it's super bright, like this sound, the one I'm using right now, because it's very bright, you just can maybe cut a little bit of the highs and making it sound just a little bit darker. Fine. So that's it. You get your delay times, how much you get to control the modulation, and the voices and the width. And on top of that, you can do a little bit of EQing. And that's pretty much the whole plugin. So this is the version number 2 of the course. They had a different version back in the version, of Studio One number 3 or something like that, which was a different course. Now, this one is kind of a normal analog vintage kind of a course, which is the normal mode. And then the other mode is going to be a doubler. So essentially on this one, what it will do, it will give you an extra voice, and the delay times are just kind of longer. And we can really hear this, especially if I play one single key and I make it really wide and I make it 3 voices. I'm going to play one single key. And there's that. It works more like a slapback delay. Right, so we get, we hear the other voices. So the voices are still very short. So right now, if I play one single key and I release, it's just not the way we should use this. But maybe go right there, keep the delay times very short. And if I make a chord, we are not going to notice the difference. So you might want to choose the normal course, or maybe use a doubler. So notice that it's super wide, and it's really cool, actually. All right, and we can see it right here, moving all over the place. So it depends on what you want to do. You might want to choose the doubler or the course. If you want a more normal sound, maybe normal course sound, you go to the course, and the other one is just a little bit different. All right, so that's it. That's pretty much it. It's a pretty simple device, but you have the ability to control a lot of things that you don't get on a lot of courses. All right, so that's it. Hopefully you like this. Remember to like and subscribe. And if you have the money and you want to, you can buy me a coffee. You can check the links at the description. You have the PayPal. You have the Google Thanks now, and then you have the Patreon. You can be a 1-month patron if you want. All right, so see you on the next one.